The sky above the alien capital of Velmora was a soft purple that evening. Two suns hung low on the horizon, painting the clouds with gold. The city below was alive with music, lights, and celebration. Flags waved in the wind, crowds filled the palace plaza. Everyone had come to witness the great event, the returning ceremony of the Earth ambassador, Elias Trent. Elias stood tall and calm on the landing platform, wearing his black and silver uniform. His short brown hair moved slightly in the breeze. He had aged since the last time he was here, but his eyes were still warm and clear. Soldiers and nobles watched from the sides, curious and silent. It had been 15 years since Elias visited Velmora. He was only a teenager back then, sent from Earth as a goodwill student. He had come to learn about diplomacy and peace. That was when it happened, the mistake that changed everything. Back then, a pairing ceremony was taking place. It was a royal tradition on Velmora. Alien nobles, especially royal ones, were paired with young people from other worlds. It was meant to build friendships and alliances. Elias, just a boy at the time, had accidentally been entered into the pairing, and he had been paired with Princess Zaria. Zaria was the youngest daughter of the Velmoran emperor. She was born with a disability. Her legs were weak, and she needed special braces to walk. Because of this, many people in the court looked down on her. They believed she had no future, no strength, no place in the royal line. But Elias didn't see her that way. Back then, Zaria was quiet but kind. She showed Elias the royal gardens. They read books together and shared food. She laughed at his human jokes. They became friends. But after only 1 week, the royal court canceled the pairing. The emperor said it was a mistake. Elias was sent home. Zaria was kept hidden from the public, and for years, they never spoke again. Now Elias was back, as a full ambassador from Earth. He had visited many worlds, signed peace deals, and helped avoid wars. His return was a big event. The plaza was full. The music stopped as Elias walked forward to greet the emperor. Trumpets played. The emperor, tall and cold-faced, stepped onto the stage to speak. "We welcome Ambassador Elias Trent of Earth," he said. "May peace shine between our peoples." The crowd clapped politely. Elias bowed. "It is an honor to return to Velmora," he said. Then, suddenly, a voice came from behind the crowd. Clear, soft, and full of memory. "Do you remember me?" Everyone turned. A young woman was standing near the edge of the steps, holding a silver cane. Her long violet hair was tied back with gold thread. Her royal blue robe shimmered with starlight. She moved slowly, but with pride. Her face was familiar. Elias froze. She stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "I'm the disabled alien princess you once paired with." Gasps filled the plaza. The nobles looked shocked. The emperor's face grew pale. Elias stared at her, his heart pounding. "Zaria?" She smiled softly. "Yes, I remember you. I never forgot." The guards moved toward her, but Elias raised his hand. "She is no threat," he said. "She is a friend." The emperor's voice was sharp. "She should not be here." But the people, they were whispering. Some were curious, some were surprised. Others clapped, softly at first, then louder. Zaria stood tall. "I was once part of a pairing," she said to the crowd, "but I was cast aside, not because of who I was, but because I was different." Elias looked at her with gentle eyes. "You were never weak," he said. Zaria turned to him. "Do you still believe in that pairing?" He smiled. "I never stopped." The emperor looked furious. "This is not the time." But Zaria stepped forward, ignoring him. "I ask for no title. I ask for no crown. I only ask to be seen." Elias nodded. "Then let her be seen." The people clapped louder. The emperor turned and left the stage, his robe swishing behind him. The crowd's attention shifted fully to Zariah and Elias now. Cameras floated in the air, recording every moment. Zariah looked at Elias with shining eyes. "You've changed," she said. "So have you," Elias replied. "But your heart is the same." She laughed softly. Still, full of fire, more than ever. They stood together under the twin suns, the crowd watching in silence. In that moment, time slowed. Two souls, once torn apart by power and fear, stood reunited. Not as symbols, not as titles, but as people. That evening, news spread across the planet. The lost princess returns. Earth ambassador reunites with former pairing. Some nobles were angry, others were curious, but the people, the ordinary people, talked about her strength, her voice, her bravery. In a small room inside the guest wing of the palace, Zariah sat by the window. Elias entered quietly and sat beside her. "I never thought I'd see you." "Again," she said. "I never stopped wondering," he replied. "Why didn't you come back? I thought you were lost to me. They told me it was forbidden." Zariah smiled sadly. "They tried to erase me, but I survived." They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars rise above the city. "I don't know what comes next," Elias said. "Neither do I," Zariah replied. "But I want to find out." Together, they looked out into the night. The past had returned, but this time they were not children. They were ready. The next morning, the palace halls were tense. The sudden appearance of Princess Zariah during the ambassador's ceremony had shaken the royal court. Rumors spread fast. Some nobles whispered about her boldness, others called it a disgrace. But many people outside the palace were excited. They had seen the footage, heard her words, and now spoke her name with new respect. Zariah had returned, and she was no longer hiding. Inside the palace guest wing, Elias Trent stood at the window of his room. The skies of Velmora were cloudy today. The light was soft, but his thoughts were heavy. He remembered Zariah's voice, the way she stepped forward in front of hundreds without fear. She hadn't changed in the way that mattered. Her body was different, yes, but her spirit, it was stronger than ever. He turned when he heard a knock. Zariah entered, walking slowly with her cane. Her royal robe had been replaced with simpler clothes, but she still carried herself like royalty. Her smile was tired but warm. "Good morning, Ambassador," she said. "You can still call me Elias," he replied. She nodded and sat on the bench by the table. "They didn't arrest me. That's a good sign." "They wouldn't dare," Elias said, sitting across from her. "The whole planet saw what happened yesterday. If they tried to punish you now, it would cause an uproar." She chuckled. "Some of them might still try. I've always been a problem to them." Elias leaned forward. "You were never the problem, Zariah. You were just too bright for them to control." Her eyes softened. "You always said kind things, even back then." Because they were true. They sat quietly for a moment. Then Zariah asked, "Do you remember what we talked about during our pairing week?" "Of course," Elias said. "We dreamed about exploring the galaxy together. You wanted to see the twin moons of Theraxa." "I still want to see them," she whispered. Elias smiled. "Then maybe it's time we finish what was started." Meanwhile, in the royal chamber, the emperor and his advisors met in secret. "This cannot continue," one noble growled. "Her return brings instability." "The people are beginning to support her," another added. "She has become a symbol." "She must be silenced," said a third. The emperor raised his hand. "We will not act rashly. We must be clever. If we move against her now, we risk rebellion. But if we break her reputation, if we show her as weak and foolish, then the people will forget. The nobles nodded. And what of the human ambassador? The emperor's eyes narrowed. He must be watched. Closely. Later that day, Elias and Zaria walked through the palace gardens. Flowers bloomed in quiet colors. Strange birds chirped in the tall golden trees. It was peaceful. This place hasn't changed much, Elias said. It's the one place I was allowed to visit freely, Zaria replied. They kept me out of sight, but they forgot that nature doesn't judge. Elias looked at her. Why? Did they cancel our pairing? Zaria stopped walking. My father said it was a mistake, she said softly. But I later learned the truth. She turned to face him. There was a prophecy, one made long before I was born. It said that a child of the royal line would one day unite with a human and bring great change that would break the old ways. Elias blinked. A prophecy? She nodded. They feared it. They thought it meant rebellion or war. When we were paired, they panicked. They broke the match and locked me away. Elias was quiet for a long moment. So? They were afraid of what you and I could become? Yes, Zaria said. And maybe they still are. That night, a masked figure moved silently through the palace corridors. He carried a small, curved blade and a device to disable cameras. He had one target, Princess Zaria, but when he entered her chamber, she wasn't alone. Elias was there, reading a datapad beside her bed. The assassin lunged. Elias reacted fast, grabbing a heavy lamp and throwing it. It hit the attacker in the shoulder. Zaria pressed the alert button. Guards rushed in seconds later, capturing the would-be killer. Blood stained the floor. Zaria was shaken, but unhurt. Elias didn't leave her side. The next morning, the palace tried to hide the attack, but the news leaked. People demanded answers. Why would someone try to kill the forgotten princess? Who gave the order? Elias went public. In a press hall full of reporters from across the galaxy, Elias stood at the podium. I came to Velmora as a diplomat. I came for peace. But last night, someone tried to murder a member of the royal family. Someone who has done nothing but speak the truth. He paused. Princess Zaria is not a threat. She is a survivor. She is the voice of many who have been ignored. He looked straight at the cameras. I will not allow her to be silenced. That afternoon, the Emperor summoned Elias. You have overstepped, the Emperor said coldly. Your words stir chaos. Elias did not bow. And your silence breeds danger. She could have died. She is a forgotten relic, the Emperor said. She cannot rule. She cannot even walk without help. Elias's eyes burned with anger. And yet she stands taller than you. The room went quiet. You are no longer welcome here, the Emperor said. Finish your duties and leave. Elias turned to go. Before I leave, he said, I will make sure the galaxy knows who she truly is. That evening, Zaria sat by the window again. Her hands trembled slightly. Elias entered. They've asked me to leave, he said, her eyes filled with sadness. Then this is goodbye. No, Elias said firmly. This is only the beginning. He handed her a data chip. This is a list of supporters, people who believe in you, nobles, scholars, common folk. You are not alone. Zaria looked at it, shocked. You gathered these? I told them the truth, he said. They listened. She smiled. I don't know what comes next, she whispered. Then we'll walk into the unknown, Elias said, together. They looked. Out the window again, stars shining above, a promise once broken, now burned brighter than ever. The days after the attack on Princess Zaria were filled with tension. The royal palace looked peaceful from the outside, but inside, whispers ran through every hall. Some nobles wanted answers. Some wanted silence. Others wanted to finish what the assassin failed to do. But Zariah was no longer hiding. She walked, slowly but proudly, through the palace halls each day. With her cane in hand and her head held high, she reminded everyone she still lived, still stood, and would not be ignored. In the quiet library, Elias and Zariah sat side by side. The air was thick with old books and secrets. They had come here to search for the truth, about the prophecy, the pairing, and why the emperor had worked so hard to erase Zariah's existence. Elias placed an ancient scroll on the table. This was hidden behind the old history shelves. I had to move a statue just to find it. Zariah gently touched the scroll's edges. The royal prophecies, sealed over a century ago. He unrolled it carefully. Strange symbols covered the page, written in the old language of Velmora. Zariah, trained in royal tradition, began to read aloud. In the era of the seventh moon, when the stars tremble and old voices fall silent, a child of the forgotten, flame shall unite with the voice of the sky and the chains of silence shall be broken. She stopped and looked up. That's me, Elias, child of the forgotten flame. I was born during the seventh moon cycle. My mother was from the old fire tribes, a line nearly gone. And the voice of the sky, Elias said slowly, that's me, a human. From Earth, Zariah nodded. This is what they feared. Elias sat back. So they broke the pairing to stop the prophecy from happening. Yes, but their actions only delayed it. Zariah touched her cane. I once thought my disability made me weak, but now I think it's the reason I was chosen, to show others that strength does not always look like power. Outside the palace, a quiet resistance began to grow. People, from across the capital, commoners, healers, scholars, started gathering in secret. They believed Zariah was the true hope of Velmora. She didn't speak in lies. She didn't hide behind fancy robes or cruel rules. She spoke with truth and heart. One such supporter was Lady Wren, an older noblewoman who had lost her status. Years ago, for speaking against the emperor, she met with Elias in a hidden tea shop in the city's lower district. I knew Zariah's mother, Lady Wren said. She was a brave woman, full of light and love. When she died, the emperor changed. Elias listened closely. Zariah carries her spirit. That is why the court fears her. She will not play their game. She doesn't have to, Elias said. She just has to be herself. Lady Wren leaned forward. If she wishes to claim her right, she will need more than words. She will need support, protection, and truth. Elias nodded. We're working on it. That night, someone slipped a secret message under Zariah's door. It read, They are planning to strip your title. Tomorrow morning. Zariah's hands shook as she read the note. Her heart pounded. They were going to take away her last connection to her family, to her people. She went to Elias immediately. We have to leave, she said. No, Elias replied calmly. We don't run. We reveal the truth. But what can we do in one night? He smiled. We don't need to shout. We just need the right ears to hear. By morning, word had spread. Zariah and Elias stood before a small crowd of nobles and diplomats in the Hall of Records. Floating cameras recorded every word. The room was silent as Elias stepped forward. I ask for 5 minutes, he said. Then you may decide whether to strip a princess of her title or give her what she deserves. The emperor watched from above, his face cold and unmoving. Zariah took a deep breath and began. My name is Princess Zariah of House Velen. Years ago, I was paired with a human boy. The court said it was a mistake, but it was not. She held up the ancient scroll. This prophecy was hidden for a reason. It speaks of peace, of unity, and of breaking old chains. They feared that change, so they broke my pairing, They silenced my voice. They locked me away because I was not perfect. Murmurs filled the room. But I have returned, not for a crown, not for revenge. I return for truth. Elias stepped beside her. And we will not be silenced again. There was silence. Then one noble clapped, then another and another. Soon, the entire room echoed with applause. The emperor stood, furious. "This is a mockery!" But one of the council leaders turned to him. "No, your majesty. This is justice." Outside the palace gates, people gathered, watching the broadcast from public screens. When Zariah's speech finished, they cheered. Her name was shouted in every corner of the city. The people had chosen. But not everyone was happy. That evening, a secret group of high nobles met in the underground chamber known as the Silent Vault. "She grows too powerful," one hissed. "The people love her," another said. "Then we must destroy her before the prophecy becomes real." A new plan was born, a plan more dangerous than the first. They would not send another assassin. They would send the trial of unity. The next morning, a royal summons arrived. It was a challenge, an old tradition. If Zariah and Elias wished to be accepted as a pair, they must complete the ancient trial of unity. It had not been done in 200 years. It tested body, mind, and soul. If they succeeded, the court would have to accept their bond. If they failed, they would be exiled forever. Zariah looked at Elias. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. He smiled. "Only if you're by my side." She gripped her cane tightly. "Then we face it together." As they left the palace, walking toward the trial grounds, people lined the roads. They didn't shout. They didn't cheer. They simply watched. Watched the forgotten princess and the human ambassador walk side by side into the unknown. For the first time in many years, the wind felt warm on Zariah's face. The truth had been spoken. Now came the test. The trial of unity was older than the empire itself. Only those who faced it together, body, mind, and spirit, could earn a sacred bond that no court or emperor could deny. Long ago, royal pairs walked through its tests to prove their worth. But for 200 years, no one had dared try it. Now the world watched as Zariah and Elias accepted the challenge. The trial grounds were deep inside the caverns of origin, far beneath the palace. Stone walls glowed with crystals, and old symbols were carved into the floor. There were no guards, no weapons, only silence. Before the first gate stood 3 trial masters, old beings dressed in silver robes. They bowed slightly. "Princess Zariah, Ambassador Elias, do you understand the risk?" one asked. "We do," Elias said. "Once the trial begins," said another, "you must finish, together. If one fails, both fail. There is no turning back." Zariah stood straight. "We will not turn back." The gate opened. They stepped through, into the first test. Trial 1. The body. They entered a massive cave filled with rising pillars, sharp ledges, and narrow bridges. A voice echoed, "Climb the path together. Only then will your steps be accepted." Elias looked around. The ground was uneven. Some stones moved, others crumbled. For someone with strong legs, it would be hard. For someone with braces and a cane, it was almost impossible. Zariah took a deep breath. "I can do this," she whispered. Elias didn't rush ahead. He stayed beside her, holding her hand when she reached for balance, giving her space when she wanted to move alone. She climbed with effort, her legs shaking, sweat on her brow. But her eyes never showed fear. Every step she took was a fight, but she took it. At one point, she slipped. Elias caught her, steady and strong. "You're doing it," he said softly. "I won't stop," she replied, and she didn't. After nearly 2 hours, they reached the top. The gate glowed and opened again. The first test was complete. Trial 2. The mind now. They entered a circular chamber with a glowing orb in the center. Around them floated images, memories, fears, and thoughts. The orb spoke in a calm, deep voice. Truth cannot be hidden between bonded hearts. Show your honesty or be lost. Zaria stepped forward. Her memory appeared in the air, her younger self, crying alone in a dark room, listening to servants call her a mistake. "I used to wish I wasn't born," she whispered. "I thought the world would be better without me." Elias stepped forward too. His memory showed a younger him, sitting in a spaceport, staring at a broken communicator. "I wanted to reach out to you," he said, "but I believed the lie that you didn't want me anymore." Zaria looked at him. "I always did, and I never stopped thinking of you." They stood together, surrounded by their most painful truths. The orb glowed bright, then faded. "You have passed. Trial 3. The spirit. The last test was the hardest." They entered a quiet chamber. No sounds, no lights, just cold darkness. A voice spoke again. "You must find each other, not by eyes, not by touch, only by heart." Then Elias was taken away by a silent force. Zaria stood alone. It felt like hours. She called out, but no sound came. She walked, but the floor felt endless. Then she remembered something. When she was small and afraid of the dark, Elias once held her hand and said, "Close your eyes. Now listen, not with ears, but with your heart." She sat down, she closed her eyes, and in the quiet, she felt him, not near, but not far. A warmth in her chest, a steady pull. She stood again and walked, slow, careful steps, guided by instinct. On the other side of the chamber, Elias did the same. He didn't see her, but he trusted her. Finally, their hands touched. The chamber lit up. They had found each other. The trial was complete. They stood before the trial masters again, who bowed deeply. "Few have faced the trial of unity," one said. "Even fewer have passed. You have shown strength, honesty, and connection." Elias turned to Zaria. She looked tired, her clothes dusty, her hair loose, but she was smiling. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected. Together they stepped through the final gate. News of their success exploded across Velmora. Crowds filled the streets, holding banners and lighting candles. The people had seen a different kind of strength, one that didn't come from power or weapons, but from loyalty, courage, and heart. Even nobles who once stayed silent now began to speak up. Eko passed the ancient trial. That cannot be denied. She may be disabled, but her will is stronger than steel. Perhaps she is what Velmora needs. Back in the palace, the emperor sat in his throne room, fuming. "They should have failed," he hissed. "They did not," said a cold voice. The emperor turned to see his sister, Lady Kailera, entering the hall. "You helped them," he growled. She smiled. "I helped Velmora. They are a danger to the old ways." "No," Kailera said. "They are a path to a new beginning." The emperor stood. "If I must choose between tradition and weakness, I will always choose tradition." She met his gaze. "Then you may soon find yourself alone on that path." 2 days later, the Grand Council was held. Zaria and Elias stood at the front, facing hundreds of nobles, soldiers, and leaders. The council leader, an elder named Viron, stepped forward. "You have completed the trial of unity. You have faced danger, revealed truth, and earned the support of our people. Now we must ask, what do you wish?" Zaria stepped forward. "I do not ask for a crown," she said, "but I ask to be heard. I ask for a place among the voices of this world, and I ask that no child, disabled or not, ever be silenced like I was." She turned to Elias. I ask for my pairing to be restored. Elias nodded. And I stand with her, as her partner, as her voice when she is tired, as her shield when she is in danger. The council was silent. Then Viron raised his staff. Then let it be known, the pairing is restored. Zariah of House Velen is no longer forgotten. She is recognized by this council. The room erupted in applause. Zariah closed her eyes for a moment. For the first time in her life, she was not hiding, not fighting alone. She had returned, not just as a princess, but as a symbol. Later that evening, she and Elias stood on a balcony watching the stars. "You never gave up on me," she said. "I couldn't," he replied. She took his hand. "The people are with us now, but the Emperor still watches. There may be more danger ahead." "Then let him watch," Elias said. "We will not step back." She looked into his eyes and smiled. "Do you remember the dream we once had? To see the moons of Theraxa?" "Yes." He looked up at the stars. "Then let's make it real." The capital of Velmora was glowing with lights. People danced in the streets, songs echoed from homes, and Zariah's name was on every tongue. The once-forgotten princess had returned, and now she stood as a symbol of hope. But deep inside, the palace the Emperor paced with rage in his eyes. "She defied me. They all defied me," he said coldly. His voice echoed in the empty hall. A loyal guard stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the people have turned. Even the nobles." "I am still Emperor," he growled, "and I will remind them what that means." Meanwhile, in the east wing of the palace, Zariah sat quietly with Elias, looking over messages from other cities. Support was spreading fast. Alien colonies, royal houses, even distant moons were sending words of praise and unity. "They're calling. It the new light," Elias said with a smile. "Some are asking for your guidance in building new councils. They want you to speak for them." Zariah looked out the window. "I never thought I would matter this much." "You always did," Elias replied gently. "Now the galaxy just knows it too." There was a moment of peace. Then a knock came at the door. Lady Kalara, Zariah's aunt, entered with a serious look. "You must be careful," she warned. "The Emperor is preparing something. I do not know what, but he is dangerous when he feels weak." Zariah stood up. "I will not hide. Not again." Kalara smiled. "Then let us help you stand tall." The next morning, a surprise announcement shook the city. The Emperor declared an emergency royal assembly. Every noble, ambassador, and council member was ordered to attend. Rumors flew through the streets. Some thought he would surrender his throne. Others feared a trap. Elias looked at Zariah. "This smells like danger," she nodded. "Then we face it together." Inside the grand assembly hall, the Emperor stood tall at the center. The nobles filled the curved seats around him. Floating cameras blinked softly, ready to broadcast the event live. Zariah and Elias entered together, heads held high. Gasps and whispers filled the hall as she walked in, strong and steady with her cane. She did not look like a victim anymore. She looked like a leader. The Emperor raised his voice. "Today, I call this assembly to speak about rebellion, about ungrateful children, and about traitors in my house." His voice echoed coldly. Zariah stepped forward. "You call me a traitor because I speak truth, because I am not afraid. You speak like a ruler," he hissed. "But you forget who holds the crown." Elias took one step forward. "The crown means nothing without the people, and the people are no longer blind." The Emperor sneered. "You're just a human outsider." "And yet here I stand," Elias replied calmly, "paired with the bravest soul in this empire." The Wei Emperor snapped his fingers. Suddenly, armed guards entered the hall, blasters in hand. The nobles gasped. Zariah's eyes widened. "He's going to arrest us!" But then, something unexpected happened. The guards turned and knelt before Zariah. The Emperor's face froze in shock. Lady Kalara stepped into the hall behind them. "I gave new orders. The Empire does not belong to fear anymore." The nobles stood slowly, one by one, and placed their hands over their hearts, the ancient sign of loyalty. "Princess Zariah," said Council Leader Viron, "will you accept the position of voice of the people?" Zariah looked around. Her hands shook. Her heart beat fast. Then she stepped forward. "I do not wish for thrones or titles," she said clearly, "but I will speak for every child who was silenced, for every person cast aside, for every soul who felt they did not matter." She looked at Elias. "For those who stood by us, and those still afraid to stand." The chamber roared with applause. The Emperor tried to speak, but no one listened. His voice was no longer law. Later that night, Zariah and Elias stood once again on the royal balcony. The stars above them were bright. The twin moons rose behind the hills. Below, the people cheered, held candles, and sang her name. "You've changed everything," Elias said softly. "No," she replied. "We did. Together." He took her hand. "The future is yours now." Zariah smiled. "Ours, always ours." 1 month later, a sleek starship stood ready at the edge of the royal launch bay. The destination, the moons of Theraxa, the dream they once shared long ago. Zariah stood at the foot of the ramp. Her royal robe was replaced by a travel suit. Her cane was still in hand, but now it was carved with symbols of unity. Elias stepped beside her. "Ready?" "I've been ready since the day we first met." They entered the ship together. As the engines hummed and the stars drew closer, a small broadcast began to play across the galaxy. A message from Princess Zariah. "Once I was hidden, forgotten, broken in the eyes of many, but one person remembered me. One person believed I mattered. And with him, I found the strength to believe it too." Her voice was calm, strong, clear. "Now I travel not as a ruler, not as a hero, but as myself. And I ask anyone listening, if you feel small, unheard, or weak, you are not alone. There is strength in you. There is light, and you matter." Across worlds, people watched. Some cried, some smiled. Some stood up for the first time in years and felt proud of who they were. Zariah looked out the window. The stars were closer now. She leaned her head against Elias's shoulder. "Do you remember," she whispered, "when we were just 2 children in a garden?" "I remember," he said. "You showed me a flower that only bloomed once every 5 years. And you said it was the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen." "It still is," Elias said quietly. "And so are you." The ship moved forward, a trail of light behind it, 2 souls once torn apart, now together again, heading into the stars. Their bond had been broken, but now it was whole, and the galaxy would remember them for what they truly were, not perfect, not powerful, but brave, honest, and united, forever.